Every social circle has a load-bearing pillar. While the rest of the group is busy moving fast and living loud, there is almost always one person standing quietly in the background, absorbing the stress of everyone else. In this particular circle, that person is Samir. He isn't the loudest voice in the room, and he isn't the charismatic leader organizing the weekend plans. But everyone knows exactly how to reach him when a deadline is tight or a sudden crisis hits. At first, playing this role feels rewarding. Fixing problems and listening to peers without judgment creates a quiet sense of belonging. Being useful can feel synonymous with being important. But over time, the tone of the text messages starts to shift. Conversations stop opening with, "How are you?" and start opening with, "Can you help?" The requests replace the relationship entirely. When every interaction is tied to a favor, a person stops being viewed as a friend with their own needs. Their entire identity is overwritten by their utility. Picture a crowded college canteen on a Tuesday afternoon. The noise level is high. Laughter is bouncing across the table, and everyone is deeply engaged in sharing stories about their week. Samir is sitting right in the middle of it. He is smiling and nodding along with the rhythm of the conversation, but the dialogue flows around him like he's a piece of furniture. He is physically present, yet entirely isolated. Then the laughter pauses. Someone looks directly at him and asks if he brought the completed assignment. For a brief second, the entire table's attention locks onto him. He smiles and says yes, looking around at the faces that only turned toward him once a task was mentioned. A friend is sought out for their company. A solution is sought out for its result. This diagram shows what we can call the economy of availability. Notice the central node pushing resources outward to the surrounding network. Time, energy, and attention are all flowing outward, but zero arrows return back to the center. Operating inside this closed loop means the central provider is slowly drained of their own resources. They are effectively consumed by the network rather than valued by it. The structural flaw in this economy reveals itself when the central node finally experiences a failure. Eventually, the person holding everyone else up hits a heavy day of their own and requires support. Samir types out a simple text to a friend, asking if they have time to talk. He hits send, watches the status update to read, and waits. The screen stays dark. He tries a more direct approach and dials another peer. The line rings twice before the call is actively declined, followed immediately by a quick "busy bro" text message. He opens the main group chat. He types out a sentence, stares at the blinking cursor, deletes it, and finally clears the text box completely. After months of being highly available to solve everyone else's crises, he looks at his phone and realizes he has no one to call for his own. This chart visualizes that exact social deficit. On the left, a massive column representing the historical energy given to the group. On the right, a flat line representing the energy received inward when support was actually requested. Investing all emotional capital into troubleshooting other people's lives guarantees personal bankruptcy when a crisis hits. The reaction to this realization is rarely an explosive argument. Instead, it triggers a psychological response known as dangerous silence, a complete internal emotional shutdown. The emotional baseline drops as a protective measure against further disappointment. This shift leaves no external traces, operating entirely within the margins of his private thoughts. The next morning, Samir walks onto campus looking exactly the same. He goes through his standard routine and wears his usual calm expression, but the internal architecture holding it all together has been hollowed out. Deep psychological damage often masquerades as absolute calm on the surface. For a social circle that only looks for utility, this internal collapse is invisible. The physical presence remains, but the terms of service change. Samir begins a slow, deliberate emotional withdrawal, quietly revoking his unquestioning availability. He starts throttling the currency of his help. Text messages sit unread for hours. He still replies, but the eager, helpful tone is stripped away. For weeks, nobody notices the shift. A group conditioned to take what it needs will only register an absence when they encounter a closed door. That closed door finally appears the night before a major exam. His phone lights up with an urgent transactional demand for his notes. He looks at the screen, pauses, and types 4 words. "Sorry, bro, I'm busy." Establishing a hard boundary cuts off the supply of a free resource. The immediate friction that follows forces the social circle to reveal the true nature of their attachment. When pressed about his lack of availability, Samir reads the messages and sets the phone down. He offers no explanation and no apology. Being a reliable person is a positive trait, but caring for others becomes destructive the moment it requires the continuous sacrifice of your own self-worth. Deciding to stop providing a free service is a baseline requirement for self-respect. If a circle only sees the loss of utility, they never saw the person to begin with. For the first time in his college life, Samir sits alone. Sitting alone by choice is the ultimate proof of emotional independence. Genuine relationships survive the introduction of boundaries. The ones that dissolve were never really there at all.